To item number 13, Resilient Cities, and I saw Mike Luley in the room. Yes, and he's still in the room. So if he'd like to come and join us, I would like to move this. Do I have a seconder for it? Andrew Turner. So, questions. I know that some... Oh, right, yeah. No, I know that some of the councillors had some questions for you. I don't know if you want to give just a very brief overview of it.
If that's helpful, absolutely. Yep. So this marks the end of the first stage of our resilience strategy for Greater Christchurch, and a way of thinking about it, a very wide, not particularly deep look at this stage into some of the resilience challenges and opportunities that are facing us. The next stage is more about a deeper dive into our what our stakeholders that we've spoken to have seen as our resilience challenge focus areas. So those focus areas for Greater Christchurch, participative leadership and governance. How do we create a city that participates in the decisions that affect them? How do we securing a prosperous future? What's required to foster innovation and attract new people and ideas to Greater Christchurch? The third focus area, understanding and responding to future challenges. How do we ensure communities are better prepared for whatever the future brings? And the fourth focus area, connected neighbourhoods and communities. What more should we be doing to ensure communities are healthy, affordable and safe? Underpinning these focus areas are questions, key questions, which are driven by a number of themes that came through focus area workshops and discussions and surveys and the analysis. Housing affordability, the role of innovation, the role of insurance, urban form, learning our lessons and securing the future for the East. So a number of underlying themes, a number of key questions to be answered in the second stage of the strategy. So that's probably enough of an overview. Happy to answer any questions.
Yep, Ali.
Thank you. The focuses or foci on page 448. Focus area 4.
Yep.
I would really like I'd like to see the whole city acknowledged in that.
Yes.
I've suggested just this area includes looking at the nature and extent of housing need in Greater Christchurch, the learning and implications of earthquake effects across the whole city, but particularly in Eastern Christchurch, because there were exceptions and it was hit particularly hard. But there, I think in the vein of inclusiveness and to acknowledge the variety of experiences across the city depending on socioeconomic, demographic, age. I know some elderly in Fendleton, for example, have had huge issues dealing with some of the things that they've got to deal with for completely different reasons than people in St Albans, Richmond or in the East. So I'd like to see a bit more of a citywide acknowledgement in that, if that's possible.
That is entirely possible. We can make that change. And the words.
It's a suggestion. It's open for discussion. I don't know how others feel, but yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
That's good. Yep. Pauline?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Also, number 4, the difference between neighbourhoods and communities. So is neighbourhoods more of a geographical connection, and communities are more of, it could be communities of interest that are spread across the city?
That's right. So communities can be communities of interest, identity and geography as well. And neighbourhoods, we tend to think more residential, that level neighbourhood, but actually it could also be business neighbourhoods as well. But it's meant to sort of highlight the difference between communities of interest, identity and geography.
And geography. Oh, that's interesting, because I'd never actually thought about breaking the word community up into those two things before, and I think that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Right, Yanni and then Phil.
It was interesting having this and then hearing the deputation this morning from the Youth Council and the youth voices. And when I look at the kind of initial engagement, it's very much the kind of traditional status quo of decision makers. So I'm really interested in understanding as we go forward with this, how the people that haven't had a voice into the initial four areas of focus can have a voice.
Yes, we're pulling together the terms of reference now for the focus area working groups. And so to maybe answer one of Councillor Jones's questions and your question now, one of the observations from our strategic partners around this project so far has been it looks still much like council. There's a willingness to by strategic partners to take part and to go wider. We're establishing working groups that will have broader representation, and their terms of reference will go beyond the stakeholders that we've spoken to so far. But one of the cautionary notes is I think we need to make sure that engagement with this doesn't cut across some of the really other important engagement activities that are happening across Greater Christchurch at this time, and that's in particular around the UDS and transition and a whole lot of other things. So the conversations we have to really think carefully and strategically about how we do that, so people don't get confused about where this is sitting. So yes, the answer is yes. We will talk to wider groups, but we're going to be very careful about how we do that.
And I just wanted to just had a second question around, I guess, what this actually means for people, particularly if you think of places like Jolly Street or other areas. What difference will this make in what those people are going through? What, in real terms, is the impact of doing this on those communities that are struggling, and I guess the children who we know through the education system are really finding it difficult?
That is something that will be answered in the second stage of the inquiry, and one of the benefits of joining the network is learning from other cities that are also in the network, but also leveraging the resources of the 100RC Rockefeller philanthropic organisation that can help us answer some of the questions that we are answering. So we can't put our finger on just exactly what it is yet until we partner up more closely with the network and delve into the inquiry. And I would anticipate the strategy itself, the final strategy, would answer that question.
So is it possible? And there was just reference to a young woman who's just won an award from, I think, Lincoln University. Student wins Treasury Award for essay calling for greater equal wealth creation, which talks about learning and education. And it just seemed to me that in those 4 areas, one of the gaps is that learning and education. So how would we, if you think about what's happening with our schools, if you think about what's happening with our children and with inequality, is there a way that we can include something a bit more around that? And at what stage do we provide that input?
We can look at the terms of reference that we're establishing for the working groups now. I think we're also aware that this conversation needs to be broader now with possibly with more community board chair and community group input. So we could probably include that in the terms of reference for the working groups.
Pauline, and then Glenn and Paul.
No, I've already asked my question.
Okay, Glenn and then Paul.
Thank you, and thank you, Mike. And I have read this report and reflected on it a lot. My question is about can this, and in the unfolding of the strategy, actually serve to act as an audit for us? And I'll just talk about the governance here, and it's a little bit similar to that political filter question I asked before, but as a kind of audit of our own, not only decision making, but the way we convey decisions. And what I want to hone in on, let's take for instance the natural hazards chapter, whereby where I'm up to at the moment is we may have done the right thing, or we had to actually do the right, in notifying threats to communities, but the process itself, I think, has become a threat. So we inadvertently we notified them, facing threats, but that in itself became that. So how, and I think it has started to undermine that which we're actually seeking to build, which is resilience. So can this also act as an audit for
yes.
the council itself?
Yes, I can. I would query whether audit is the right word.
Yeah, I was trying to think of whether a measure or something, yeah.
Yeah, so getting a community understanding and responding to future challenges and how we actually have that conversation with communities is a key aspect of that particular focus area. And I think that's one of the challenges that you've just identified with going out with the report in one hand and the rules in the other, I think. And are there better ways? And this focus area could well, in fact, it will be looking at other ways in which communities can be engaged in this kind of conversation. So that is making it as relevant and real to communities in the east, Sumner, New Brighton, Kaiapoi, as it is to the Butcher and Hornby and Fiddleton, to all communities, those communities as well. How we have that conversation, and I think that's a key, could be a key thing that we learn in these focus areas. Yeah, how do we use anthropologists and storytellers and community leaders to lead these narratives?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Paul?
One was just to thank Mike for the work you have done in bringing some focus on this here. I also want to thank you for joining the Safer Christchurch Interagency Group to chair.
Oh, thank you.
I think coming along to there and all the agencies that actually are there to actually make Christchurch a safe place and Canterbury a safe place, and having that all joined up is actually really important. Just thanks a lot for doing that.
Thank you.
All right. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.